Hey everybody, my name is Jaron Escamilla, and whether you're watching this at NYC on Wednesday or online, thank you so much for watching this. If you're watching online or at NYC, please subscribe to the NYC YouTube channel. Just helps this channel grow, and other people that want to or maybe need to watch these videos can watch these videos. Now, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I go shopping or I go to the store, sometimes if I bring my wallet, I am a spender, which means I go in there maybe thinking, oh, I'll just grab a bag of candy, Meanwhile, the bag of candy I grab is this 20-pound bag of pure gummy bear goodness. I don't know, a specific brand or something. Or I go in there just for that. But then I actually walk out with that and a bunch of Pokemon cards, or maybe a board game I saw online, or maybe some other cool thing that I found. I just spend my money because I don't focus on the one thing. I'm just thinking about everything. It just seems so enticing, But today I wanted to talk about focusing our mind, and specifically focusing our mind on God. Now, if you guys will all please grab your Bible. I got my paper one here. And everyone go to 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. It's going to take me a couple of seconds to get there, whilst I'm taking time to get over there. Samuel is about David. Now, I don't know if you guys know who David is, but if you do know who David is, great. For those who don't, maybe this will jog your memory. David is the same guy who had the slingshot. He slingshotted a stone right at a giant, killing Goliath. David and Goliath. I'm pretty sure if you know the David and Goliath story, or at least the phrase, you'll know who David is. Now, right now, David is the king. And right before chapter 11, in chapter 10, we see that David is actually fighting off these two rivaling nations. And he just had this big victory. And so it's, he's feeling good. He just had this big victory. It's like you just did this big test, or you just got that new PR on the bench, or you just scored a three-pointer, half-court basketball. Yeah, sports. Cool. Not much of a sports person, if you could tell. But if we read here at chapter 11, verses 1 through 4, it says, "It was spring. It was the time when kings go off to war. So David sent Joab out with the king's special troops and the whole army of Israel. They destroyed the Ammonites. They marched to the city of Rabbah. They surrounded it and got ready to attack it. But David remained in Jerusalem." Now, obviously, David remained in Jerusalem. He was not supposed to be in Jerusalem. He was actually supposed to be out fighting with the rest of them, finishing this fight. But he decided to stay in Jerusalem. He wasn't doing what God told him to. And so he kind of set a trap for himself that we see in this next verse. "One evening, David got up from his bed. He walked around on the roof of his palace. From the roof, he saw a woman taking a bath. She was very beautiful. David sent a messenger to find out who she was. The messenger returned and said, 'She is Bathsheba. She's the daughter of Eliam. She's the wife of Uriah. He's a Hittite.'" Now, he should not even have been here. And now he is looking at someone bathing, who he should not definitely be doing. He should not be doing that. And obviously, he set this trap for himself, basically. And this trap led to temptation, because he was not focusing on what he should have been doing, because he was not where he should have been. And if we read on to verse 4, "Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her." Now, David was not in the place he should have been. He was not doing what he should have been, and he wasn't focusing on what he should have been doing. He wasn't focusing on God, and so he led to this temptation. If you guys would all open your notes and write down a quick point here. When we don't focus our mind on God, it becomes hard to focus our minds away from temptation. This is important, obviously. And because he fell into this temptation, he fell into this sin. And the sin that he had just committed had caused him to push God away from us, or from him. And obviously, that's not good. Whenever we push God away from ourselves, we're pushing him. Basically, we're saying yes to a bunch of bad things like sin. If we read on to 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 8 through 10, it says right here, this is after David already done this. David found out Bathsheba was pregnant, and so now he is trying to basically cover up what he did. So it says, David said to Uriah, "Go home and enjoy some time with your wife." So Uriah left the palace. Then the king sent him a gift, but Uriah didn't go home. Instead, he slept at the entrance to the palace. He stayed there with all his master's servants. David was told Uriah didn't go home, so he sent for Uriah. David said to him, "You have been away for a long time. Why didn't you go home?" Now, we see David's plan has failed. He did not get to cover up what had happened and is now having basically to think of another way to cover it up instead of actually just saying that he did wrong. And so we see what David did was David sent for Uriah to go on the front lines of battle, basically killing him. This one action of him simply not doing what God told him to led to murder, basically. And so another point I want you guys to understand is that through this sin that he had done, he pushed God away from himself even further now. And the point is, when we push ourselves from God, it becomes harder to focus on him. And because he was pushing God away from him, he became absent to God, basically. Not that God didn't know where he was, but he basically stopped, talking to him. Because he felt guilty, number one, he was trying to cover up this sin. Because no one else knew about this besides David, Bathsheba, and Uriah. Until Nathan the prophet came, and he said, God knows. He said this in the way of a parable, though. The parable goes like this. There was a rich man with a large flock, and a poor man with a small flock. This poor man in the small flock actually only had one sheep. This rich man had a friend over, and instead of taking from his flock, he took from the poor man's flock. And obviously David was outraged at this. Why did the rich man do that? He had so many other sheep. That's so outrageous. Why would he do such a thing? And then finally Nathan said, David, you did that. Now, as I was saying, he did that. David took from the poor man's flock. Now, he did all of these things because he simply was not focusing on God. It's such an important thing, and it can seem small, but it really helps us out. And I understand it may be hard to focus on God, but I have an action step for you. This is something you can do throughout past hearing this message. Now, an example of what I do, and sort of what this action step is to think of one thought. Just a random sort of good thought. The one I think of is I think of a children's book. Of a children's book family. How they're all so happy and they're all amazing together. And then I relate that to what I'm thankful with God. And for me, that's thinking of my family and how great and amazing they are. And how much I love them. And whenever we just relate a good thought to God, it helps us truly focus on just how good he is and how we can trust him and how we can know that he has our best in mind.